of you have decided to join us tonight. We've got another amazing guest, Pekitta Tynes. But before we begin, we again want to say welcome. Make sure you've said hello in the chat bar. Try to hold your questions till after the presentation is over. And again, like Pam said, you're welcome to ask it or raise your hand. Either way, we can call on you. But before I introduce our guest, I did want to take a moment to mention Allison Larkin tonight. For those of you that were here with us last week, we had Allison on as a guest, and you heard her mention, make sure you're all muted, please. You heard her mention that she had finally found love after decades. Sadly, she lost her partner this week, and it was very unexpected.
Oh, wow.
Very unexpected, very quickly. So if you haven't already, show her some love on Facebook. She could use your thoughts and prayers and phone calls, whatever. But let's kind of keep Allison in our thoughts. We just wanted to take a moment to mention that to all of you if you didn't know. With that, I would like, Pam, would you like to introduce our guest?
Sure, you muted me. You muted me. Who's muting me?
Not me, I didn't touch it.
No,
I'll let you introduce.
Sure, I will, yeah. Well, Pekitta and I go, gosh, now what, 8 years back?
Yeah,
a long time back. And when we were talking about having people on, she was one of the first people I thought of. Her humor, obviously, is the biggest thing that stands out. And her story. So I'm going to read you a little bit about Pekitta. But the other thing, too, is her book, which is called Thank God I Was Adopted, because DNA is no joke. And that is the truth. Pekitta uses humor to share her search experience and her journey to finding her biological connection in spite of life's obstacles. Her experience will inspire, motivate, and encourage audiences to never give up on their search and provide insight to why searching is necessary. What was the motivation to search, why giving up the search was not an option, and why DNA is no joke. She is one of the 100 memorable adoptees in the book, Finding Our Place, written by Nikki McCaslin with Rich Uhrlaub and Marilyn Grotzky. Pekitta has lived in Las Vegas, Nevada for 18 years, but now resides in Sacramento, California. Pekitta holds a master's degree in business administration. So I give to you my good friend, Pekitta Tynes.
Yay! All right. I know you guys are clapping. I just can imagine that you are clapping. And yes, Pam and I go way, way back. And she sent me an email, oh gosh, maybe a month and a half ago. She said, Pekitta, pick a date. And I was like, oh my God, Pam wants me to make a commitment. Oh my God, I can't make a commitment. But she pinned me down and you got me for August the 7th. So I am happy to, really, really happy to be here. I do have about 3 announcements. As Jennifer and Pam has said, I will answer all of your questions about any subject, about anything at the end of the presentation, okay? So feel free to type it in or unmute yourself at the end and we can get those questions answered for you. I do have my happy hour drink. I got some water and I got some leftover fruit punch that my grandkids left in the refrigerator. So if you see me sipping, trust me, I'm not getting drunk. My last announcement, and I think it's most important, that if anybody sneezes or coughs on this call, I'm going to put my mask on and I'm going to wash my hands. All right. So I'm just saying, you can't be too cautious nowadays. So the other thing mentioned was I'm in a book, and this is the book. Can you see the book, right? It's Finding Our Place, 100 Memorable Adoptees, Foster Persons, and Orphans. And Let's see. This is me. This is me before gray hair. And I'm in this book right here. But the cool part about being in the book is that I'm right next to Orson Welles. So I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. And then Maya Angelou is in the book. And Faith Hill is in the book. And one of my fellow comedians is Tommy Davidson. I don't know, I put the arrow right by his name. He's Tommy Davidson. You may have known him from In Living Color and all that other good stuff. And so, I just wanted to validate my legitimacy on all that other good stuff, because psychologists say that in order for like men to continue engaging you in conversation, you need to give them the bottom line first. So I'm going to give the men the bottom line. I was abandoned when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I don't know when I was born, how old I am, what my real name is, where I'm from, and I did not know my biological family. When I turned 19, I searched 35 years for my family, and I found them. And after I found them, I wrote a book titled, Thank God I Was Adopted, because DNA is no joke. Okay, that's the bottom line. Now, the psychologists say for women, you need some details. So, oh, do I have some details for you? So indeed, it is a pleasure. It is a pleasure, ladies. And at any point, my story can be a little sensitive. It can be a little emotional. And I try to bring some humor to the story. So if you find yourself laughing, it is okay. All right. I was left with the mother of the neighborhood. And so in most of your predominantly Black neighborhoods, you have that one person who will keep everybody's children. And that one person really don't ask a lot of questions. Maybe you were a friend of somebody's, you just wanted to have a place to drop your kids off. Well, I was dropped off with the mother of the neighborhood. The man who was supposed to have been my father told her he was going to look for a job, and he never came back. So I always say he's that one person messing up unemployment statistics right now. So, and when he did not come back, in leaving us there, it wasn't like he left a birth certificate and acting like he wasn't going to come back. So she kept us for a couple of months. And when I say us, my sister and I, we were both abandoned at the same time. And after about, 5 or 6 months, she goes over to the nearest elementary school and she puts me in the school. So back in the day, you didn't need all of these shot records and birth certificates and, different things that you need today. And trust me, when I say back in the day, I mean back in the day, because I am older than what I look. Now I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to have to stop saying that. I was a guest lecturer at a university, and I say I'm older than I look. And one of the girls in the class, she raised her hand and she said, "Are you 64? I was like, "Oh, honey, do I look 64? I said, "You're going to need to go with the look number, not the age number," because she was trying to guess my age. And if I was her teacher, I would have gave her an F in that class. But I'm digressing. Hold on. So anyway, when I get to the school, my nickname was Kitty Boo. Now, I will tell you later on, I'm going to tell you how I got that name. And people used to tell me that if you did not have a nickname, you were not loved. So we got a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of nicknames like Stink Stink and Tinky Tink and Lil Junebug and just a lot of different names. My nickname was Kitty Boo. All right. So when I get into my first grade class, my first grade teacher says, honey, what is your name? And I said, my name is Pekitta. And she says, how do you spell it? I said, well, I don't know how to spell it, but that's my name. She went to the board and she spelled it Pekitta. And that's the way I've been spelling it ever since. By the time I got into second grade, my second grade teacher found out that I was in a foster home. And the way we got into this foster home was because the mother of the neighborhood, her sewage was backed up. She was living in the projects. So when the social services people came out to fix the sewage, they don't see my name and my sister's name on her paperwork. So they were asking, so where did these children come from? Who are they? And she says, you know, someone came, they left them, and I really can't afford to take care of them anymore. So my sister and I became wards of the state and placed into a foster home. So now my third grade school teacher, her last name is Tynes. My last name is Tynes. Mr. and Mrs. Tynes could not have children after 13 years of marriage. And when she found out that I was in a foster home, she goes over to social services and she inquires about adopting me. When she gets there, they tell her that she can't just adopt me, she would need to adopt my sister also, because they knew nothing about us. And they realized, they said, we cannot separate these two children. So by the time I turned 9 years old, my adoption was finalized. And so now my adopted parents have created a birth certificate for me. They gave me a birth date. They gave me a middle name, and they gave me their last name. Now, with the condition of this birth certificate, it meant that I could not travel abroad, because here I am being adopted at 9 years old, and you have to identify when you get a passport where you were from 0 to 9. And that information was completely unknown to me. So as I grew up, I knew that I could not travel international. And so Mr. and Mrs. Tynes, great, wonderful family. And then after everything is finalized, about, I believe it's like 14 months later, my brother comes out of the womb. So Mr. and Mrs. Tynes went from having no children to 3 children practically overnight. And I remember my parents was explaining to my brother that his sisters were adopted. And my brother came to me, he said, you know you was adopted, right? I said, you know you was an accident, right? So anyway, I did ask him a couple of years ago, did he remember that? He was like, yep, I remember. So he, bless his heart, that's all I can say. So back in the day, I knew that at 19, I needed to join a support group. I didn't know that they actually existed until one of my coworkers said, you know, this lady that I know, she has this group and she was adopted. And I said, she was adopted. And so I go to this group. And it was one of the best things that I've ever done. It doesn't matter where I live, where I go, I always seek out a support group, because people who are in the group understand what it is that you're going through. If they don't understand it, they know somebody in that room understands the adoption portion of what you're going through. So I always, went to these groups. So at 19, they were telling me, look, you don't lie. You don't lie. But you do that thing that Jack Nicholson did in the movie Something's Gotta Give. You give them some version of the truth. You just give them some version of the truth. So I operated off of, I'm not gonna lie, but I ain't gonna tell you everything. I'm gonna give you some version of the truth. So I get my first document. So when I turned 19, I received some money from a settlement, because when I was at the mother of the neighborhood's house, I got hit by a car, and there was money set aside so for me when I became of legal age. Okay, so I'm thinking I got tens and tens of thousands of dollars. It was like $900. I was like, oh man, for real, seriously? Okay, I'll play along. So I go to the hospital where I was hit by the car. I remembered it. I remember being in the hospital, and I told them that I needed my hospital records in order for me to get the settlement money. Now, that was not the truth. My adopted dad had the money. He had put it in the bank, and I had already spent it by the time I went to this hospital. But that was my first, some version of the truth. And they gave me the records. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my God, oh my gosh. Okay. On the records, it was the name of the lady who kept me at her house, the house where I was abandoned. Her name was Elizabeth Reese. So I go, to the neighborhood. The neighborhood was torn down. I go through some city directories, and I'm trying to find Elizabeth Reese. Well, I really find that she is now deceased, okay? And then I found some people that lived in that same row house. So it's the projects, they called them row houses. So I found some people that lived in the row house. And back then, if you tore down, say, the row houses, people just moved one block over, one block down, 2 blocks over. They always just stayed in that same, vicinity. So I find this person, and I say, hi, I'm looking for Elizabeth Reese. And she lived at this address. And everybody, I talked about 5 or 6 people, everybody said, yeah, the only person that lived at that address was Mama Nancy. And I started putting things together. No one knew what her real name was. Everybody just knew her as Mama Nancy. And that right there alone is the reason why the nicknames just stick with you forever. And you gotta die before somebody knows your real name. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. So I concluded that I should not ask for Elizabeth Reese. I should ask, where is Mama Nancy? Okay, and they're like, oh, Mama Nancy, she died, but her daughter still lives and over. And I was like, I'm trying to take mental notes. You know how you get all excited and you don't have a pen and a paper, but you got mental notes because you don't want nobody to think you like the police or something. So anyway, I find Mama Nancy's daughter, and I remember her when I was growing up. Now, Mama Nancy was keeping her. I don't think it was her daughter, but this daughter, Deborah, just called Mama Nancy Mama, okay? Deborah had like a mental handicap. You know how, I don't know what the word is, but let's say you might be 20, but you have a mind of a 12-year-old or 13-year-old, that type of thing. So I find Deborah, and she is still mentally handicapped. And she was so excited to see me. And she was like, oh, Kitty Boo. I just played along because that's my nickname, Kitty Boo. And she gives me this big hug. She asked me about my sister. She said that her mom had passed, and her mom, Mama Nancy, had really missed us so much. And so now I'm thinking we've got this way cool conversation going on. I'm going to ask her about the man who dropped us off at her house. Oh my gosh. I said, so do you remember my father? Oh my gosh. She started like, your father? I don't know what kind of man would leave his children. He never called. He never came back. He didn't send no money. And I'm standing in her face while she's, doing this, like this. And I was like, yeah, that's the man I'm looking for. That one right there, that's the one I'm looking for. But because of the mental, she could never get back to our happy conversation that we were having, 15 minutes before I asked about the man who had left us. So that was a little bit more challenging than what I wanted it to be. I later found a guy by the name of Wallace Green. And Wallace Green also owned a shot house. And again, this is a place where you go drink liquor illegally. Like right now, nowadays, you have a party, you say BYOB, bring your own bottle. Well, back in the day, they used to have these houses where you can go and they would pour your liquor and you pay them for it. Well, of course, you need a license to do that. And people are, having parties at the house and, all of that kind of good stuff. But it really was illegal. So those people who had these shot houses were incognito. A lot of people didn't want you to know they owned this shot house. Okay. So I find that there's a Wallace Green, and I get off from work and I go to the corner where they have men who stand there looking for day work. And so back in the day, you just stand on the corner, you can get some day work, you can get some evening work, and you get some night work, as long as you're standing on the corner, okay? So after I come across his name at lunchtime, I now want to go to this corner. It's at the Burger King, for those people who know the area, Jefferson Avenue. So I go to this corner. My boyfriend at the time is like driving. And I get to the corner. I said, hi, does anybody know a Wallace Green? Older man comes off the wall. He said, yeah, I know Wallace Green. At the same time, a younger guy is coming off the wall. And they both get to my car at the same time. The older guy said, yeah, I know Wallace Green. The younger guy looks that man in the face and said, don't nobody know Wallace Green. Older man said, yeah, I know. And the younger guy said, don't nobody know Wallace Green. I was like, oh, boyfriend at the time. He said, oh, Pekitta, we got to go. The older man turned around, went back to the wall. The younger guy turned around and went back to the wall. I said, what happened? What happened? Well, when I get home, I'm taking my suit off. At that time, you wore a suit, nice little blazer, little skirt. And I had my secret security clearance because I worked at the shipyard. And that younger guy had looked down in my car and he saw and he thought I was a po-po, I was some kind of detective, and they couldn't give up Wallace Green because, again, Wallace Green owned the shot house. I know Wallace Green owned the shot house. I didn't even know I still had my badge on. So anyway, it's those kinds of things that make you say, I'm close, but I done lost it. It took me like 3 months to find Wallace Green. And Wallace Green, he couldn't remember the man that had worked with him because someone told me that the man who abandoned me worked with Wallace Green. Wallace Green couldn't remember. So I was like, So as time goes on, right, I'm still searching. It's like a mental search. If somebody was to stop me in the street, and this is true, oh my God, you look just like, I was like, who is it? Who is it? And they're like, my cousin, where they live. So, because I'm always searching for that connection to see if somebody knew something that I'm searching for, right? So time goes on, and I have a friend, a guy friend who was living and working in London. And when I was talking to him, he would say, Pekitta, you have got to come to London. I said, well, you know, I can't travel abroad. You know, I can't get my birth certificate, blah, 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 blah. And so he's like, yeah. He comes back after 2 years. He said, I'm gonna help you get your birth certificate. I said, what? Huh? And so he's not my birth certificate, I'm sorry. He's gonna help me get my passport so that I can travel abroad, because he really felt like I needed to see London. Like after he had been there for 2 years, Pekitta would love this. Okay. So I had already tried to get my passport for 15 years and with no success. He says, Pekitta, you need to write a letter to your senator. And I'm like, okay. He said, send me the draft. I'm going to edit it. And then he sends it back. He tells me who to send it to and gives me the address. All right. So at the time, I'm in Las Vegas, and I'm sending it to the senator's office. Inside the senator's office, there are students who work there, but they don't get paid, but they get they get college credit for working in a senator's office. So I went through 3 externs. These little people who work but don't get paid were working on my case, right? After a while, I finally get my passport. When I say I'm excited, I'm telling you I'm excited. And that excitement kind of spilled over to people that I knew. I'd call them up personally, say, you ain't gonna believe this, girl, I just got my passport. So one of the guys in my office, now I will tell you, you can be excited for some things, but everybody's not gonna be excited for you, but it should not take your joy away. So the guy says, the only reason why you got your passport is because it's an election year. I was like, rah, rah, election year, yay, yay. So it's like, I don't really care if it's an election year, non-election year. I have my passport. So I'm just one happy person, right? So one of the things I said to the senator after I'm close to having tears in my eyes, if there is anything that you would have me to do, feel free to give me a call. So it was about, oh gosh, it wasn't even a whole week later after I said that. They like, hi, Pekitta, can you do a commercial for the senator? Sure. All righty then. I did the commercial about, it was probably another week later. Hi, Pekitta, can you come down to the call center and make some calls? I'm like, sure, okay. Oh, let's see. They would give me like maybe 5 or 6 day breaks. And they're like, Pekitta, can you come and hand out some door knockers and walk like 16 communities? I was like, sure. So I thoroughly enjoyed working on the campaign. It was not a problem at all because they treated me really, really good. And I got to go to events that I would not necessarily have gone to or been invited to. I was VIP status wherever I went. I was like, oh man, this is real cool. When y'all having another election year so I can go and hang out with the senator and be like, the celebrity kind of people and stuff. And the president came to speak at the time. I was like, oh, wow, I'm right here. Let me take pictures and show my mama and them. They not going to believe I'm looking up at the nose of, Barack Obama. They not going to believe this. So anyway, it was very, very nice. And it was one of those kinds of things that I would do it again. And whenever I got to travel, So one of the things, I'd been traveling in the US of A, right? And so I was trying to go to every state in the United States. And I had the opportunity, some of you know that I do stand-up comedy, and I used to be on the road traveling, and I've had this little stint in Montana. Let me tell you about Montana. It's a little different in Montana. They don't really see a lot of colored people in Montana. And so I get there and I go into the Kentucky Fried Chicken. And when I walk into the Kentucky Fried Chicken place, the young lady at the counter, she kind of like, oh, can I help you? I said, oh no, give me a minute. I need to look at the menu, right? I hardly ever eat at Kentucky Fried Chicken, but in Montana, it just really, I think it was like Kalispell, Billings, in that area. It's just not a lot of options of eating food, fast food kind of places to eat. And so she leaves the register, she goes back, and then 2 people come out. Now there are 3 people standing watching me look at the menu. And I was like, oh, this is a little different here in Montana. This is a little different. So what I found out was they had put my picture in the paper that I was coming to be at the comedy place. And when I walked in, I kind of gave them the conclusion that all Black people eat chicken. And I was like, oh my God, no. They wanted to fill my hair. I was like, okay, it's a little different here in Montana. But it's when you don't have that passport and you're not able to travel across the country. I can travel across the US of A, right? So I've had a lot of different experiences. Now, with my passport, I first went to Rome and Paris. I went to Germany. I went to Dubai. I went to China, Beijing, Shanghai, Shanghai, Hushu, some places I can't pronounce. I went to Australia, Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Sydney. And so I get real excited when I get ready to travel abroad. And the last place I went was in October 2019. I went to London. And it was, the guy friend, we done broke up, we don't even talk no more, whatever. And so I said it was everything that he had already told me about London. So very, very excited. We now have COVID, and I was going to go in August this month, in the middle of the month, to see Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act, right? So I was really, really excited. I have used my passport. I do travel places in the US of A still, but my preference is always to travel abroad. I was very upset when they stopped stamping your passport book. And now they have some kind of digital thing that you go through and hold your face. And I'm like, that's no fun. You know how long it took me to get this passport. But anyway, as time goes on, when I met Pam, we were at the American Adoption Congress conference in Denver. And I was the keynote speaker there. And there were so many different sessions that I could not even go to all of these sessions. So people would come out and they would say, oh, Pekitta, you need to take a DNA test. Well, what I knew about DNA tests is that they were about $4,000, $5,000. And there's a lot of jokey jokes for me to tell to come up with $4,000 and $5,000. They told me about a 23andMe. That was the big thing back then. And then the speakers that were there were from familytree.com. So I took a DNA test with Family Tree about a year, and I got some results. But they were like 3rd and 4th cousin matches, right? So these 3rd and 4th cousin matches, they were my Caucasian cousins, and that's what I'm gonna say. They were all Caucasian cousins. And I had concluded that I was prepared to find that my biological mom or my dad, most likely my mom, was going to be white. That's kind of what I concluded from the results that I received from familytree.com, third and fourth cousins, all white. So now, as time kind of goes on, it's about a year and a half later, Ancestry.com started dropping their kit prices, and it was $99. So I ordered one kit from Ancestry.com and one from 23andMe. Let's see, Ancestry.com's results were going to come back in 4 to 6 weeks. So I go to my calendar and I mark 4 weeks, look for Ancestry.com results. Also, 23andMe results, 4 to 6 weeks. So I am in my office. I'm leisurely strolling around. At that time, I was in Texas. And I had, ran some errands. And I said, I'm going to go to the office. I'm going to do some work, kind of get caught up, prepare for Monday. And I go to the office, and there's a lady in the office. This lady never comes to the office on Saturdays, especially when I'm there. She just doesn't, okay? Well, she happens to be in the office, and I get some work done, but not a lot. She also knew that, I had sent off my DNA and I was waiting for my results, that kind of thing. So can't get much work done. So I say to myself, well, let me just check my personal email before I leave. I have this email that says your Ancestry.com results are in. And I was like, it's only been 2 weeks. I literally go to my calendar going, why is it so early? This must be a fluke email. All right. I open up the email. I open up the results. And the results showed that I had a first cousin match. I literally, let's say your computer screen is in front of you, and I started backing up from the computer like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Oh, the lady in the office, she says, Pekitta, are you okay? I said, I don't think so. I really don't think so. She said, what's happening? I said, I got my DNA results and I have a first cousin match. She said, oh my gosh, oh my God, oh my God. So I'm serious. That is an oh my gosh continual moment, right? So if anybody, you've ever been on Ancestry.com, you know that you can send that person an email. You can also maybe, if you got a tree, you can share your tree with this person, blah, 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 blah. So I send this person an email, right? I had 2 second cousin matches. I sent them an email. I have a third cousin match, and I send them an email, okay? So now my chest is just beating real fast. It's kind of like that anxiety. You gotta be kidding me, because everybody knows that if I got a first cousin match, whoever her mama and daddy is well, my mom and daddy, that's their sibling. My mom and dad is their sibling. It's real simple. It was not complicated at all, period. All right. I go home. I got my computer up all day and night, waiting for a response from that email that I sent. So now it's a Sunday. It's a Sunday, no response. Then Monday comes. I am at work, trying to do work, but I got my personal email up on one of my computers. I got my work email up on the other one, because I am waiting for a response. No response, people. This is like the longest wait of my whole entire life. Seriously. Now, I've already waited 35 years. And I had to talk myself into it to say, Pekitta, you already did 35 years. Come on now. You can do another week. You can do another day. You can. Okay. All right. It was, so on Monday evening, it may have been Tuesday, that third cousin responded. And this third cousin happened to be a retired chief of police in a major metropolitan city. So when I sent him this email, his response back was more like, I cannot believe somebody in my family connected to me through DNA doesn't know their family, right? He later said that he had traced his family back to Cleopatra and Pocahontas. I was like, look, I'm just looking for mama and them. We don't need to go back that far. I just need mama and them. All right. First cousin, it's a month. She still ain't responded. Seriously, I'm floored. My chest kept beating fast when I think that maybe I'm gonna get a response. So this third cousin, chief of police, ex-chief of police, says, I'll find a phone number for him. I said, really? Look, I don't want to hear nothing, see nothing. I don't want to know how you did it. I don't want to know. But he came back with a phone number. I called the number. I got no response. He came back with another phone number. I call the number. I leave a message. I get no response. Let's see, about a week later, he gives me another phone number. Now, this is 3 phone numbers. Like, I know he got connections, but these phone numbers, ain't nobody calling back. Okay. So this third number, I called, and the person answered on like a ring and a quarter, like, and they answered, and I was like, hi, can I speak with, and they said, who's calling? I said, oh, I'm your cousin. I'm sorry, I had my white people voice on, because it's a thing. It really is a thing that, sometimes you don't know that the person on the other end is not a bill collector or somebody that you might, not need to talk to. Okay. So I had to, and when I said that, she kind of, snickered, a little bit. She's like, oh, okay. I said, oh, I'm your cousin, but really, actually, I am your mother's cousin, and you would be my second cousin. I said, I've been trying to reach your mom, and I just haven't gotten a response, right? And I gave her the number that I had, and she said, yeah, that's her number, right? And I was like, well, why hasn't this lady called me back? I know I sounded like I was in distress, but I sounded professional distress. So she says, and I said, well, look, you can Google me and to validate my legitimacy. So remember that commercial that I had done for the senator who helped me get my passport? It was, and little did I know, I'm just saying thank you so much for the passport, but every time I talk to somebody with DNA, that commercial validated me because the senator helped me get my passport based off the fact that I was adopted. So I was like, little did I know that was what was going to carry me over the top for people to validate me. So the girl says, look, I am going to tell my mom to call you, but I am going to Google you first. All right. So I go home. 45 minutes later, this cousin, first cousin that I've been waiting to respond to some emails on Ancestry.com, she calls me and she apologizes profusely. When I say I've never had nobody apologize to me like 400 or 500 times, in an hour and 10-minute conversation, she kept apologizing. And I said, well, so what happened? She says, well, first you said that you were abandoned, right? I said, and I was. And she says, and then you said you was adopted. And I was. She said, and you said we were some kin to each other and we were first cousins. I said, and we are. She said, but she was also a detective. And she had learned that so many people will take these DNA tests so they can, fraud you for them to take on identities. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know all of that. And she said, so when she got that first message, boom, delete. It's a fraud. Okay. The second message, she happened to own an apartment building, a duplex, and the other phone number was to one of her tenants. The tenant asked her to come over and listen to the message that I had left. She said, delete that message. I got one of those messages on my phone. Delete. So the only person, it was that third phone call, and it was to her daughter. And that's how I got the connection. Like, that is how the ball really, really started rolling. And I find out that I had my biological father is a twin. He died, he passed, my biological father passed in April of 2010. But his twin sister, who just celebrated her 87th birthday, July 31st, said, when I called her, she said, honey, if you say you some kin to us, then you some kin to us. She said, because my brother, and she named one of her brothers, she said, oh, he was a Rolling Stone. And I was like, all your brothers was Rolling Stones, every last one of them. Like, I'm thinking that her brothers wrote the lyrics to Papa Was a Rolling Stone and gave it to the Temptations to sing. That's all I'm gonna say, because each one of them had, you know, marriages and then babies and children inside and outside their marriages, right? Except for the older one. All right. So I find out who my biological father was first. And then December, that was October 31st, December the 3rd, I was talking to my biological mother on the phone. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? Because that third cousin, my biological mother, is related to him in that line. So he was on a mission to find her because he knew that she was some kin to him, all right? So find her. If you are adopted and you find your biological connection, I don't know about you, but the first thing I wanted to know was, when was I born? And so I asked my biological mother, and she said she didn't know. People, I'm just like, I had my hands up in the air going, what? So, you know, my brain starts to going, well, was it cold outside? Was it leaves on the ground? How can I help you, help me, help us? That's the only question that I really, really had, that I really wanted to know the answer, like, right away. Okay. So then I say, so who is my father? Now remember, I've already found my biological father, October 31st. All right. And she tells me that her boyfriend is my father. I was like, no, I'm sorry, that's not my father. She said, oh, yes, it is. I said, I don't really know what to say, because I'm still trying to get over, you don't know when I was born. Seriously, I'm still trying to get over that. So I'm still trying to maintain my professionalism of, you got to be kidding me, you don't know when I was born. And then, so I said, well, I'm sorry, but the man that you're saying is not my father. And she says, well, I was not a loose woman. And I'm like, I don't even know how loose she was, but that's not my father. So now I'm talking out loud. My brain isn't just talking, now I'm talking out loud. So she asked me about my sister, because my sister and I, we both have the same mother, but we have different fathers, okay? And later on, I had asked her, like, how much did I weigh when I was born? You know, stuff that I'm thinking every parent just knows about their kid. And she was with she didn't know, still with she did not know. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to need to have you take a DNA test, right? She says, well, I know I'm your mother. I say, but I don't know you, my mother, because again, I'm thinking you need to know when I was born. All right. So I am winding down, ladies. I'm winding down, Jennifer and Pam. Let me tell you what happened? How did I get disconnected from my biological mother? Biological mother had a daughter before me, and that daughter stayed with a relative. She had me that she thought was by her boyfriend, and then she had my sister, who is really by the boyfriend. And then she was pregnant with a boy who is by the boyfriend. All right. So when she was pregnant with the boyfriend, with the third child, she says to the boyfriend, I think we ought to get married. They get married. And a couple of weeks later, she receives a notice in the mail that her marriage was null and void because he was already married. She says she leaves him. He finds her at one of her girlfriend's house. And he says to her, you can't leave me. She said, but you married. But you married. Like that back in the day was really embarrassing, to be married to somebody and then they already married to somebody else and your stuff is jacked up. So anyway, he says to her, I'm gonna take the girls. She said, go ahead, take them. Go ahead. Well, I find out that biological mom really never kept us. We always stayed with a mother of the neighborhood, not the one I was abandoned with, but another husband and wife team who kept single women's children, because the era of time, it was a stigma against, single moms that had, 1, 2, and 3 children. It just, just didn't look good. It shamed the family's name and a lot of different things. So single moms would let married couples keep their children. And this family kept my sister and I and about 4 or 5 other children, okay, that was not theirs, but they were children of single women. So the family that kept us, the lady just passed, last year, maybe in October, and she was about 92 years old. Her husband just passed about 4 months ago, and he was about 84, 85. And I went to visit them when I found out who they were. And the man says to me, he said they were both, mentally fine and talking, but the woman was blind and he kind of, was slowful in his seat. But when he saw me, he sat up in the seat. He said, I named you Kitty Boo. Now, people, when I tell you, I wanted to just fall on the floor going, where did you get that name from? But he was so proud. He was so proud that he had named me Kitty Boo. I couldn't even ask him, where did he get it from? Like Kitty and Boo. I don't know. And he also named my sister, her nickname was Nene. So it is an honor, it is a privilege if you get to be the one to name a person their nickname that goes with them for the rest of their lives. I trust you have enjoyed my little talk. I'm ready. I am ready for some Q&A if you have any. If you have any.